Coming up in the news, a national day of prayer set for tomorrow. Nurses leading a protest. And persons in quarantine are permitted to vote. Tonight we have reaction. The Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, all. I'm Megan Shepard. Thank you so much for tuning in. Topping news, tomorrow has been designated National Day of Prayer. It comes on the eve of the general elections. Bahamians everywhere are being encouraged to participate in prayer initiatives organized and scheduled for tomorrow, September 15th. President of the Bahamas Christian Council is appealing to all churches to open their doors tomorrow as they seek God's guidance before heading to the polls on Thursday. Rumiko Knowles has more.
Bahamians everywhere are being encouraged to come together on September 15th for a National Day of Prayer. President of the Bahamas Christian Council, Robert Lockhart, says for the past few weeks, religious groups across the country have been praying for the Bahamas and for God's will to be done during the general elections.
God knows who will be best for our nations for the next 5 years, whether it's the present government or a new government. And it is my prayer, and it is our prayer, that that the Holy Spirit will so influence the hearts and the minds of the electorate that the majority of people would have a sense of who would be best for us, what government would be best for us, whether the present or next government, in moving forward. And so we're looking forward to, as we pray and seek God, that God's will be done.
Grand Bahamas Christian Council President notes that this is an important time in the country and Bahamians cannot afford to mark their X without first seeking God.
But it's time for us to pray and to vote. So we'll pray first on the 15th, and then we'll vote on the 16th and pray that God's will be done in the end. And that as a Bahamian people, we make the best choice and the right choice for our nation for the next 5 years ahead.
He's also reminding Bahamians about our democracy, noting that everyone has the right to choose the party of their choice, and regardless of the political divide, he says at the end of the day, we are all still Bahamian.
Whichever party wins at the end of the day and it becomes the government of the Bahamas, that we as Bahamians need to come together, be supportive of our government, and let's work together, government with people, people with the government. The government is there to do what's best for the people and to represent the people in the halls of Parliament. And so our prayers will be that that takes place also, that everything goes well on election day, and whichever parties are elected to serve this country, that we as Bahamians pull together and move together for a better Bahamas.
And as we talk about the National Day of Prayer, Lockhart is appealing for it to become an annual observance.
That we need a set day, National Day of Prayer, that we can have every year, where political leaders, religious leaders, civic leaders, social leaders, financial leaders in this country can come together and let's seek God's face together for him to continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and that we continue to do well as a people.
Rumiko Knowles, ZNS Network News.
Thousands of Bahamians are expected to head to the polls on Thursday to cast their ballots for the candidates of their choice, among them those who are currently in quarantine. Whether those in quarantine should be allowed to vote in the general election has been a controversial issue. While the government has confirmed that any individual in quarantine will be able to go to the polls. Tonight, some residents on Grand Bahama are sharing their views on the issue. Italia Hall reports.
The news coming this week that those quarantined persons registered to vote in the September 16th general election will be able to leave quarantine to cast their vote, while residents on Grand Bahama weighing in on the decision by the government.
I think that's their rights, they should be allowed to vote, and as long as they follow all the protocols.
I don't think they should have been allowed to vote.
Why not?
Because of the health problem.
The Office of the Prime Minister advising that the eligible quarantine person must immediately return to their place of quarantine after voting at the appropriate polling station and ensure that they wear a mask which is fitted to the face, covering the nose and mouth. Additionally, maintain a distance of 6 feet and sanitize their hands before entering the polling station. Hezekiah Dean says he believes that those quarantined should be allowed to vote.
In normal circumstances, you don't know who is on the line in any case, all right? I mean, I'm a presiding officer. I'm one of the presiding officers. And I know for a fact that whoever comes in, you can't say who has or hasn't got it. You understand? So there's no reason to put a stigma on or put an extra stigma on the quarantined person, because the quarantined person may have it and may not have it. It may have just been quarantined because of being associated.
Julian Knowles and Rashad Adderley say they too agree with the decision.
I would agree with the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition that it should be a personal decision of the voter, and if they feel like they think important enough and they could secure themselves, because I'd probably be working around the post and I don't know who's vaccinated, I don't know who's in quarantine, I don't know who has COVID. But if I see someone said, look, I'm COVID, I have the COVID and I'm supposed to be in quarantine, then I'm going to go looking for some extra masks and gloves to give them, to let them go and do their constitutional rights and vote.
In reference to the quarantine voters, I'm glad that they're able to be given the opportunity to vote. What should take place now, they should put them in a separate place, knowing that all the quarantine people, put them in one area. Let's use for example, let's use Christ the King. Let's just for example, you have them to go vote there. So now you eliminate any chances of having the spread if it's a spread. You know what I mean? So to give the person an opportunity to vote is a good thing, because this is a serious election.
But Dean says he does not believe that quarantine voters should be stigmatized.
You shouldn't brand them so that everybody knows that they are quarantined. That's not fair to them. You're talking to me and I'm talking to you. I have on a mask, you have on a mask, he has on a mask, all right? But either one of us could be. I mean, I'm fully vaccinated. But the thing is that you don't know that. And so we don't know who is who when we get on that line, all right? So everybody go in, follow the precautions, vote, and leave quickly and go.
The Office of the Prime Minister reminding members of the public, vaccinated and unvaccinated, to practice all of the COVID-19 prevention protocols at all times. Bahamians and residents are strongly urged to get vaccinated as soon as possible. To make an appointment, persons can visit vax.gov.bs or visit a vaccination center to make an appointment. Italia Hall, ZNS Network News.
The Ministry of Health announcing in a press release that there is a notable decrease in COVID-19 cases. The analysis of COVID-19 data by the Ministry of Health for the period of January 1st through September 12, 2021 is beginning to show a decrease in the number of new cases of COVID-19 as the result of the aggressive vaccination campaign by the government and increased uptake of the vaccine. During this period, there were some 11,584 confirmed cases, 302 deaths, and an average of 54 persons hospitalized per week. According to the release, the number of COVID-19 cases began to plateau during the first 2 weeks of August, and for the next 4 weeks, there was a decrease in the number of COVID cases. Now, although there is a decrease in COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations continue to increase. It is expected that as COVID-19 cases continue to decrease, there will be a decline in the hospitalizations reported. The Bahamas experienced a peak of 40 deaths during the week of August 22nd, and as the cases continue to decrease, it is also expected that the number of deaths will decrease. The release also notes that the Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, will speak to the national COVID-19 situation tomorrow, September 15th, and the Ministry of Health will host a press conference to provide the public with a COVID-19 update. And with just 2 days until the next general election, the Free National Movement has kicked its campaign machinery into high gear. The Prime Minister visiting 2 northern islands yesterday, Bimini and Abaco. In this report, the nation's leader telling Abaconians that their redevelopment and advancement is a major priority. Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, on the ground in Abaco with the party's two respective candidates, Vandia Stewart in South and Central Abaco and Darren Henfield in North Abaco. The Prime Minister telling Abaconians that the family islands of this country are near and dear to him and that this administration is committed to the continued development of that northern island. Noting the tremendous suffering endured during Hurricane Dorian, the Prime Minister says that the Free National Movement will create the extended disaster recovery program.
And this program will apply to the hardest hit areas of Abaco. Now I know Darren had mentioned that with subdivisions, because of the challenges you've had, we've determined to make that, to reduce the charges by 50%. But I know what you've gone through with Hurricane Dorian. You have sustained 90% of the damage here in the Bahamas. And when re-elected, I will go back to my cabinet and ask them to cut that by another 50%.
As it relates to education, he notes that free preschooling is available to 3- and 4-year-old students. However, there are many family islands that do not have government facilities, and he says that these islands cannot be marginalized.
What we're offering and proposing for you today, just like we've done to every family island, once there are individuals within your island who has the skills and certification to commence a preschool, we, the government, will give you the land free to build. In addition to that, we would allow you to build that school duty-free and all equipment duty-free. In addition to that, every student that you admit to that school, the government will pay you $2,000 per year.
And when it comes to the healthcare system, Prime Minister Minnis made these announcements.
We are going to increase the medical and staff complement at the Marsh Harbour Clinic. Plans have already been made to re-establish telemedicine here in Abaco. We are going to significantly enhance and upgrade the telemedicine infrastructure and technology, so you can have consultations with doctors in Nassau and overseas without you having to travel back and forth. We are going to expand universal health insurance through national health insurance.
Following the Abaco rally, the F&M leader made a stop in Bimini, where a rally was held in support of the party's candidate, Pakeisha Parker Edgecombe. Supporters also took part in a motorcade through the streets of Bimini. Well, switching gears now, nurses on Grand Bahama staging a peaceful protest outside of the Cancer Association Center this morning as they made an appeal for the settlement of their honorarium payments. The nurses are also calling for better and safer working conditions. Jamila Mizik reports.
Nurses stationed at the COVID unit in Grand Bahama are seeking answers as to when the remaining balance of their honorarium payments will be distributed. Nurse PCA Kenneth Fowler says as frontline workers, they were happy to know that they would be compensated for their hard work. However, they were disappointed after not receiving the full amount as promised. Fowler says as healthcare professionals, they love what they do and are committed to the service of the Bahamian people, which is why they deserve their just due.
So you, the Bahamian public, can see our outrage when we are receiving the same honorarium as the low-risk workers, some of which outright refuse to work or come near our doors, when we toiled and put our lives on the line time and time again. This is an outcry.
The nurses admit that it is a tough situation, having to work in uncomfortable conditions, adding that they could never feel protected enough, but their patients come first.
Our air conditioning isn't really working anyway, so it's hot as you walk inside. So to put these on, it's just pure plastic. And bear in mind, it's more than what you see, because we still have to wear another N95 over our face, along with the face shield. And we're in those rooms roughly about an hour to 2 to 3 hours at one time, back and forth all day. So just the heat alone will wear you out. And most of the time, like I said, because we don't have from the beginning until now, because most staff wouldn't come here, we end up working double shifts just to cover and make sure to take the necessary precautions to take care of the guests that we have here.
Standing in support of the healthcare workers is Bishop Sobek Kemp, who says he was a patient at the center under the care of the nurses. He's thanking them for their excellent service and is hoping that they will soon receive further compensation.
I would like to encourage those persons who are responsible for remuneration to please value our service workers. Value those. Give them the full value. Because when people are valued, they return that value to us.
Now the Honorable Michael Pintard was on hand. He is expressing confidence that the matter will be resolved and that they will revisit the list to ensure that the nurses receive what is owed to them.
It is no secret to the Bahamian community that a tremendous amount of the service providers in the health care field are leaving. Persons have gone to Canada. Persons have gone to the U.S. It is in our collective interest as a country to make sure that those who are still here, still on the front line, get their just due.
Jamila Mizik, ZNS Network News.
Scores of social workers throughout the northern region have called in sick for a second day. Our ZNS News team understands that the union members are continuing the apparent sick out without the consent of the Bahamas Public Service Union leadership. Sharp Stewart for the Department of Social Services in Grand Bahama says that workers are frustrated and burnt out, and they want their issues to be addressed. Ramiko Knowles has more.
More than 50 workers from within the Social Services Department have called in sick for a second day over ongoing concerns within the Department of Social Services. Sharp Stewart for the BPSU in Grand Bahama and the Northern Region, Garth Russell, says the Bahamas Public Service Union appears to be preoccupied with other matters in various departments and agencies they represent, and the social workers have decided not to wait on the union to move on their behalf.
So at this point, we recognize the importance of going at this based on how we feel about what disadvantages we are having and experiencing at this time, and the workers are basically frustrated and burnt out. You'd have seen that several weeks ago, and as I said, we hope that the union will actually catch up with us. We think that they have a lot to do, but we have our own concerns.
And what does it say when union members take matters into their own hands and do things without the union's consent?
Well, it would not create the prettiest picture, but in every family there is always sometimes some very ugly pictures painted. But the point is that we at this point feels exhausted and frustrated, and we are seeking to have our cause addressed, and we hope that the union will catch up to us.
Russell adds that social workers provide an essential service and more consideration should be given to their concerns.
We're talking about social workers who are responsible for holding this country together, be it hurricanes, tornadoes, storms, be it crises that have been developed in families, homes, children, people being hungry, needing food. There's everything that we actually deal with, and it doesn't seem as though the right attention is given to us.
He adds that the Vice President for the Bahamas Public Service Union in the Northern Region is aware of their actions and that they plan to continue the sick out until they get the response they feel they deserve.
So as of right now, we have close to 50 persons that are on a sick out, and as I said, this is in several other islands as well. It's not just Bimini, Abaco. We have persons from Long Island, Exuma. There are one or two persons that we also count from Nassau. So there are persons that are taking this very seriously, and as the days go by, we expect to see a stronger support.
Ramiko Knowles, ZNS Network News.
Meantime, there is another side to this story tonight coming from the Northern Region Vice President of the Bahamas Public Services Union. Shashina Roll-Farquharson has more.
While the employees of social services continue with their sick out, the Northern Region Vice President says that this action was not sanctioned by the union and was a decision that was made without consultation.
The union was not aware of any industrial action that social services in Grand Bahama would have taken today, and definitely is not in support of it. The normal chain of command is once there is a grievance in the department, the shop steward is supposed to contact the Northern Region Vice President, which would have been myself, and express the concerns and allow me a chance to have the matter addressed. And then in the event I'm unable to do so, I would forward the concern to the president.
She says the outstanding matters have been addressed.
None of that was done, so we are not aware of any process as such taking place today. The regularization exercise has already begun with social services, where the persons will be regularized. And also the career part, that is a pet peeve that's in question, was already challenged by the union's attorney. So we're just waiting on some response from that. And it was also brought to Mr. Campbell's attention.
The Northern Region Vice President is also making this clear about the person who has spoken to the media in regards to these issues.
And I do realize that Mr. Russell was noted today as the union's shop steward for the Department of Social Services. However, he was on his own agenda and he does not speak for the Northern Region Vice President or the Bahamas Public Services today with the stance that they decided to take.
Shashina Wolf-Farquharson, ZNS Network News.
Stay with us, there's more news right after this break.